Welcome everyone to Ratioed. My name is Harrison Faulkner. Something very strange took place in our country this week. Justin Trudeau was met by thousands of admiring and loving fans at the Calgary Stampede, and unfortunately for Canada's propagandist legacy media reporters, there's quite a lot of footage of that event, and we'll see what is true and what is false. And in a weird turn of events, our Prime Minister, who was greeted by thousands of yelling and screaming admirers in Alberta, had to hide behind a plant in a Montreal bar. We'll get into that later. It turns out that our federal government's love affair with heavy-handed COVID measures like vaccine mandates is turning out to have quite the benefit for Canada's professional sports teams. Am I a hypocrite when it comes to the success of Canada's sports teams? Perhaps. And lastly, we wrap up the show, as we always do, with the Ratio of the Week award. This week it's going to Canada's very inexperienced Foreign Affairs Minister, Melanie Joly. Now, as always, before we get into it, if you like the show and you want to support True North, give this video a like and share it. And if you're feeling generous, consider donating to us at tnc.news. All right, let's get into it. If you were reading the Globe and Mail or the Toronto Star or CTV News or City News or any one of those really reliable, trusted news sources like that, you may have come across a headline that read, "Trudeau mobbed by admirers at Calgary Stampede pancake breakfast." Now, we have footage of those admirers mobbing our Prime Minister. This was sent to us from the ground at the event. Let's just see what that looked like. Wait, sorry. That's the wrong clip. I think we have another clip, right? I think this is the actual clip of what we saw.
You're a traitor! You're a traitor! I'm glad you're here with my son Xavier as well. I know you're all watching out here with families as well. This is a moment to gather and to celebrate being able to gather once again. Isn't it great to see everyone?
Isn't it amazing, guys? I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a prime minister or a leader of a country like that be so mobbed by admirers, be so loved by his voters. I mean, clearly in Alberta, Trudeau has found a home of supporters. And interestingly, for some weird reason, now I don't know why, but for some weird reason, CTV ran quite a few articles about the Calgary Stampede. However, they used photos from 2018. I can't imagine why they would do that when we've seen the support that Trudeau gets at the Calgary Stampede. I mean, why would they have to use old photographs when they could have used those photographs of all those admirers? So what's really going on here is that the Canadian Press, a wire service in Canada, which is quickly becoming Canada's version of China People's Daily, a propaganda arm of the Trudeau government, they put out articles which other news outlets purchase and then run on their own sites. So that's why you saw Globe and Mail, City News, CTV News, all of these outlets across the country run the exact same article by the same author with the same headline. Trudeau mobbed by admirers at the Calgary Stampede breakfast. This level of propaganda is quite impressive. But it's weird. I mean, that video we saw of his admirers mobbing Trudeau, wanting to get his autograph, shake his hand, show him support, none of those videos were used in the article. They didn't want to actually show any of the video footage in the article, of which he's being mobbed by admirers. Even better for Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, this private staged event was held kilometers away from the actual Stampede. When we saw conservative politicians doing their pancake breakfasts and actually meeting with supporters and Canadians, Justin Trudeau held a private staged event in a public library parking lot kilometers away from the grounds. But that wasn't it. Trudeau did actually go to the Calgary Stampede. It turns out that he actually went when nobody was there. He took photos with the mayor of Calgary and a Liberal cabinet minister from Alberta at the Stampede when no one was around. Here's a photo of him standing in an empty stadium while just a few hours ago he was supposedly mobbed by supporters and admirers. Something doesn't totally click here now, does it? Could it be that the Canadian press completely made up the story and didn't even expect Canadians to buy it? So it turns out that unlike the other news outlets that decided to continue to run with the absurd propaganda article about Trudeau being mobbed by admirers, the Globe and Mail listened to their critics, who absolutely grilled them for this absurd story. Hilariously and very quietly, the Globe and Mail changed the headline from "Trudeau mobbed by admirers at Stampede pancake breakfast" to "Trudeau references Ukraine inflation at Calgary Stampede pancake breakfast." So just a slight change there, right? And I don't think anyone would really notice the difference between referencing Ukraine and inflation to Trudeau being mobbed by admirers. I wonder what happened there, Globe and Mail. Did something change where all of a sudden Trudeau wasn't admired by thousands of supporters? It might be, in fact, that a new video emerged from the event in which thousands of admirers gathered to show their love for Trudeau that completely debunks this absurd propaganda story. Just incredible scenes, because the day before Trudeau was admired by thousands of supporters in Alberta, he was yelled at by a protester in Sudbury and called a communist. And just watch his reaction to being called a communist.
Will you shake my hand holding a freedom flag?
Thank you. You had your 20 seconds. It was a pleasure.
Are you 20 seconds, you communist? Go, Trudeau, you're nothing but a communist pig. That's what you are. You're disgusting. You should resign.
Free our political prisoners.
That's disgusting.
Now, of course, on this show, we go into your comments on the best tweets of the week, and there are quite a few on that Globe and Mail tweet about Trudeau being mobbed by admirers. The first one is, so nice to see the PM being treated the way he should be. Calgarians know he is the best Prime Minister we've ever had. Well done, Calgary. Just perfectly echoing the tone set by the Canadian press, the propagandist Canadian press. I think we should now call the Canadian press the Canadian People's Press Daily. I think that's more in line with what we're getting from them these days. Here, this person comments, staged event that looks eerily familiar to the same ones hosted in North Korea for Kim Jong-un and his admirers. Yes, his thousands of loving admirers and supporters, all showing their love and loyalty to the Supreme Leader of Canada. And we wrap up with this good observation, which is the RCMP not smart enough to wear different cowboy hats. Yes, if you look closely, everyone seems to be wearing matching white cowboy hats, even the Prime Minister. Bad look for these experts in staging events. And honestly, based off of what we're seeing from the Canadian press, what's next? And I ask that question with full sincerity, given the headlines we're now seeing from them. Because, of course, in North Korea, the very free and very objective and fair press there have convinced all North Koreans that the Kim family are, quote, too perfect to urinate and defecate. And that one North Korean outlet even wrote that on Kim Jong-il's first attempt at golf, he shot a 38 under par with 11 hole-in-ones. So I asked that question because, really, if Trudeau was mobbed by thousands of admirers, this article just came through from the Canadian press. This is the headline. Trudeau beats Kim Jong-il's record golf score on his first try with one hand behind his back, shooting 12 hole-in-ones, besting Kim Jong-il's record 11 hole-in-ones on the first try with millions of adoring fans watching on. Incredible stuff. Just as we speak, the Canadian press comes through once again. Bill Graveland of the Canadian press comes through once again. Great job, Bill. Well, folks, the very next day, our Prime Minister was brought straight back to reality. This time, however, in his home city of Montreal. Yes, the city in which he gets re-elected year after year, where he's supposedly loved by everyone. His admirers came back to greet him this time at a Montreal bar. We have some video footage of that. And just check it out. So we saw his thousands of admirers in Alberta. Here are his admirers in his home city where he gets elected every single election. Check this out.
Yes. We spoke in the past in the summer. Remember, Bill, you disturb us every day. Why
Tous les jours.
disturb you for
Yeah, ça c'est vrai, tous les jours.
Last question of the Merrill Lynch. You preach the whole wild world about freedoms. How come freedom fighters for the convoy are still in jail?
Free Tamara.
C'est une
prison.
Now, none of this makes any sense to me at all because we all really trust Canada's legacy media, and Canada's legacy media told us that Trudeau was mobbed by admirers in Alberta. How could it be that Trudeau was mobbed by admirers in Alberta when in his home city he doesn't seem to be mobbed by the same admirers? In fact, it seems eerily similar to what he's been getting everywhere he goes. Could it be that basically not a single person in this country likes this guy? Not a single person in this country has any respect for this guy? That might be the case, but I mean, the Canadian press did tell us. Bill Graveland did tell us that thousands of admirers showed up to support Justin Trudeau. So you saw there journalists, independent journalists, approach the Prime Minister and ask him real legitimate questions. Questions that Canadians want answers for, that Canadians actually are concerned about. And as you can see, when these journalists are asking Trudeau these questions, Trudeau is sitting there sipping wine, purposefully in plain view of the cameras and the protesters and the journalists, and showing complete and utter contempt for the people. And then it appears that when things quiet down, instead of fielding the questions of one protester, the person Justin Trudeau is talking with across the table pushes, and this is real because we have video footage of this, the person Trudeau is talking to pushes a pub plant across the railing to cover the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister needing to hide behind a pub plant to avoid having to talk to the people. This is the state of our leader right now. Just unbelievable. Watch this.
Oh, they are pushing the plan to hide Mr. Trudeau.
The truth is, guys, we just have to once and for all leave the legacy media behind. They have proven to us time and time again that they are nothing but state propagandists. This level of coverage would make even the most seasoned state propagandists in Russia and China very proud. Great job, Canadian press. Supreme Leader Justin Trudeau is very proud of your reporting. It turns out that there might just be a silver lining for all of us when it comes to our federal government's love affair with heavy-handed COVID policies like maintaining vaccine mandates on incoming travelers. Yes, Canada is one of the only countries, I'm pretty sure, that still holds on to a vaccine mandate for incoming travelers. And it's actually turning out to have quite the benefit for Canada's professional sports teams. Sure, it's a horribly destructive policy that's dividing families and communities and destroying Canada's reputation, but is it helping Canada's sports teams on the field? It might just be. So the Philadelphia Phillies, a professional baseball team, are currently in Toronto to play the Toronto Blue Jays. And one of their best players, catcher JT Realmuto, is not allowed to enter Canada because he's not vaccinated. Now, unlike hundreds of professional athletes who I'm sure lied about their vaccination status, said they got the shot when they actually didn't, athletes like JT Realmuto and recent Wimbledon champion Novak Djokovic have stood their ground like real men, have not lied to the press, have not lied to their teammates, but stood their ground, made their point, and not flinched, no matter what the cost may be. And for JT Realmuto, the Phillies catcher, the cost is pretty high. It turns out that for not playing 2 games, yes, for not playing 2 baseball games, in JT Realmuto's contract, he is forfeiting upwards of $260,000. Now I want to ask you, if you could just lie about your vaccination status and receive $260,000, and play the game, wouldn't you take that money? Because I don't think many of us would do what JT Realmuto did. Of course, he's a millionaire, he's a professional athlete, lives a pampered lifestyle, but still, when you stand your ground, and you stand your ground for a reason and for a purpose, I believe that deserves respect. Realmuto was asked by the Philadelphia press, the Philadelphia media, before his team made the trip, about his decision, and watch this clip. It is awesome. Watch what he has to say.
What are your reservations with the vaccine?
I'm a healthy 31-year-old professional athlete that I just didn't feel a need to get it. I've had COVID a couple of times and super mild symptoms back when it first came out. And when it came time to decide whether I needed a vaccine or not, talked with a couple of doctors that I knew and told them my story and just really decided I didn't think I needed it. And I wasn't going to take it just because I was told to, basically. So,
even if it meant not necessarily, because you're going to forfeit a good amount of salary.
Yeah, but I mean, what's money when I'm not going to let Canada tell me what I do and don't put in my body for a little bit of money? It's just not worth it for me.
Basically, what he's saying is, what's money when you let a country that you're not even from tell you what you can and can't put in your body? Unless you're a crazy COVID zealot, I think that's a message that all of us can get behind. We can recognize that, you know what, that's a principled stance and that deserves some respect. Novak Djokovic, who just won Wimbledon, has faced this problem for years. Australia didn't allow him entry to play in the Australian Open. The US doesn't allow him entry to play the US Open. Wimbledon finally allowed him in, and what does he do? Of course, he wins like he does all the time. He's a consummate winner, a consummate champion. Now, he was asked this question too. Djokovic was asked about his decision to remain unvaccinated by a BBC reporter in an interview. And the question was, would you still refuse the vaccine even if it meant giving up on being potentially the greatest tennis player of all time? And his answer is just flat out yes. And again, whatever you think about the vaccine, whatever you think about COVID, you have to respect a principled stance when you see it. And that is principled. Now, if we're being honest, is there a little part of me that kind of likes the fact that Canada can just bar the best player from opposing teams from entering the country? Because you know what? It actually worked for the Jays. The Blue Jays beat the Philadelphia Phillies last night when one of the best players in the team couldn't come to Canada to play. So maybe it does work. And we've seen this in basketball. We've seen this in hockey. Big stars, big names have been unable to come to Canada to play against the Raptors or to play against one of our hockey teams. In basketball, big names like Kyrie Irving weren't allowed to come to Canada, and there were other players who played the Raptors in the playoffs who couldn't come to Canada to play in those games. So it does kind of help us out. And I know you see the hats behind my shoulder. I am a Jays fan for sure. When the Jays win, I'm happy. So part of me does like the fact, but of course part of me also recognizes that this is a brutally authoritarian, awful policy that must end, and Canadians must speak out. We must take the energy of athletes like JT Realmuto who just, you know what, take a principled stance and say, no, let's just cut to the chase. Let's be honest. ArriveCan, the apps, the measures, the mandates, it's nothing more than a loyalty test. It's nothing more than you showing the government that you are loyal to them. It's nothing more than demanding that citizens bow down to ridiculous government measures that we all know don't work. So when it's an athlete, when it's a politician, or when it's just your neighbor, when they take a principled stance, let's show them respect for that. And let's honor that stance and say, you know what, that's what we should all be doing. Because unless we do that, unless we actually say, you know what, no matter what the cost, I'm done. I'm done playing these games. Until that time, we're not going to see ArriveCan drop. We're not going to see these mandates drop. Because at this point right now, it's a very valuable tool for the government to know who is loyal and who is not. All right, everyone, it's come to the time of the show where we hand out some hardware. My favorite part of the show each week, the Ratio of the Week award. This week it is going to Canada's very inexperienced and quite useless Foreign Minister, Melanie Joly. Melanie Joly, in her infinite wisdom, thought it would be a good idea to tweet about the Sri Lankan protests and to condemn the actions of the Sri Lankan government's heavy-handed approach to dealing with these protesters. Basically, what's going on in Sri Lanka is that the president of the country, whose family has been leading the country with an iron fist for about 20 years, fled the country and resigned from his position as tens of thousands of Sri Lankans who no longer have power, no longer have food, no longer have any access to medication, rose up and said enough is enough. They overthrew their government. And now, of course, the country is trying to deal with these protests. These are insane. You can see footage of it all over the internet. We won't get into that. But what we will get into is Canada's response. Because again, this is not the first time that Canada's government has decided to wade into these protest movements around the world. If you recall, in India, during the farmers' protest, Trudeau made this grand point about how Canada supports the right to protest freely, this and that, and really nothing more than meddling in the domestic affairs of a foreign country, a country whose relationship with Canada is extremely important in India. We saw Trudeau do that. This time it gets even better. Melanie Joly wrote on Twitter, "The July 9th protests in Sri Lanka were a clear expression of the desire for a better Sri Lanka. Canada supports a peaceful constitutional path forward that supports urgent action on economic and political reform." Here it goes. Ready? "Violence against peaceful protesters and journalists is unacceptable, and those responsible must be held accountable. The right to protest peacefully must be upheld." Melanie Joly said, violence against peaceful protesters and journalists is unacceptable. You cannot make this up. This was her government in February of this year.
I believe that when you survey the conduct of law enforcement over the last number of days, what you have seen is restraint. I mean, take a look at the way that the police carried themselves throughout the course of dealing with the illegal occupation here in Ottawa. There was a degree of professionalism. And focus, despite the fact that there was an emotionally charged atmosphere, despite the many provocations and intimidation, and at times efforts to assault police officers. And that, despite all of that, we saw a minimum use of force.
So yeah, the foreign minister of the government who brutally beat protesters in Ottawa, who trampled on elderly women with horses, who tear-gassed journalists, who pepper-sprayed a True North journalist. She is now lecturing the world on what to do with protesters. She's lecturing the world on how to treat peaceful protesters and journalists. Unbelievable.
Calm down.
Oh, I'm calm.
Melanie Joly was given 1,640 comments to 230 likes. That is a certifiable winner every single week, and Melanie Joly takes the award home. This comment with almost 1,000 likes is perfect. Does this apply to Canadians, Melanie? Now, will you protest peacefully without going to jail or having accounts frozen? No, of course not. What do you think this is, a free country? And this last one, I have to bring it up because I think it's kind of cool. The ratio watch is in full effect these days. If you are getting ratioed, we are going to bring it on this show. This person is right on the money. At Harry Faulkner. Can you say ratio of the week? Ratio of the week. I can say it. Anyway, there you go, Melanie. Enjoy it while it lasts. You are this week's winner of the award. All right, everyone. That's going to do it for us this week. Thank you all for tuning in. My name is Harrison Faulkner, and this is Ratio.